Welcome. We're going to go over some M20 cards. It's not going to be a full set review, but we're going to browse and just talk about the cards we see in this set and what we think the impacts are going to be on Limited, kind of some LR tangential content. But I haven't read these cards, so like we were talking about not doing it card by card, but I don't know. Like, I'm just going to not take a lot of time on cards that I don't think are super interesting. But I haven't read these cards, so I need to read them. I might as well read them aloud. I can't though. Aerial Assault is 2 and a white for a sorcery. Destroy target tapped creature. You gain 1 life for each creature you control with flying. Second clause seems throw away 3 mana to destroy a tapped creature. We all know about tapped creatures. It means they've attacked you. So, and it doesn't. The problem with removal like this is the creature already attacked you, and you're not using this as removal to clear a blocker. So keep that in mind. But you're still going to play this. This is the kind of thing you play, but you just recognize that you're going to take an attack first. Oh yeah, Valhalla's is not finding inspiration in Meme Town. There's always something. I'll find it. We'll find it. We'll find something sweet. Ancestral Blade, 1 and a white for an artifact, uncommon. Design aside, I am strongly in favor of largely making artifacts colored in the future. I think a huge problem with artifacts is that because they break the color pie and can go into any deck, there's kind of 2 modes for artifacts, unplayable and broken. It's not that simple. There's some balanced artifacts in the world, but when you don't have color pie to balance out the availability of the effect and the limitations on which decks it can appear in, it's really hard to design around. But artifacts are flavorful, so just make them colored. Perfect. When it enters the battlefield, you create a 1/1 white soldier creature token, then attach the blade to it. So at 2 mana, it's just a straight up 2/2 in effect for 2, but it's equipment, so it can be re-equipped. That seems great. That's some serious upside. That's a bear I can get behind. Yeah, you can have both. I'm saying, Fnatic Guru says, or have both colored and uncolored. Yes, there are times where you explicitly want the artifact to be available to everything, like Wanderer's Twig or the 3 mana rocks, right? I mean, of course, you have to have ones that don't have color, but more. It used to be, and it kind of has been historically, that seeing colored costs on an artifact is like weird. Like that's a weird thing. Mainly what I'm saying is I want that to stop being a weird thing. That should just be a normal thing. Angelic Gift, not worth it. Oh, no, it draws a card. It's maybe worth it. Got to make sure you cast these when the coast is clear. You don't want to get blown out by having your target removed out from under you. But flying is a good ability to get onto a card get onto a creature for 2 mana and no card. I'm down. I like that. There's enchantment fall type mechanics that could matter as well. So if there's cares about enchantments, Angelic Gift intrigues me. Angel of Vitality, 2 and a white for a 2/2 flying. If you would gain life, you gain that much life plus 1 instead. Okay, extra life. Angel of Vitality gets +2/+2 as long as you have 25 or more life. I wouldn't count on this being too much more than a 2/2 flyer that if you have some incidental life gain gets it better. It's pretty win more. Boy, if you're in a spot where you're at 25 life and then you create a 4/4, I guess being at 25 doesn't mean you're winning per se, but it's just hard to stay at a high life total and limited unless there's a ton of life gain here. Scenes, yeah, but we've come a long way from the 2/2 for 3 flyer, so you expect especially after this last set, you expect something. You get something there. I don't know how good it is though. Apostle of Purifying Light, 1 and a white for a 2/1 pro black. Exile target card from a graveyard. Yeah, this looks like it's trying to be a constructed toolbox. Looks like I was talking to Marsh about this. We were driving to Adams yesterday to play Magic, and I was reiterating my confusion around the return of protection. On the Modern Horizons primer show, I went on about protection as being something that had been correctly retired, and then they're not retiring it. And I still don't fully understand why we need full-on protection to return. But in limited, you know, neither this ability is going to be good against some decks, and this ability is going to be good rarely. So as far as two drops go, I don't actually like this all that much. But as a sideboard card against black, okay. Battalion Foot Soldier, 2 and a white for a 2/2. When it enters the battlefield, search your library for any number of cards named it, reveal them, put them into your hand, and shuffle. Okay. So this is our vampires returning. This was pretty underrated in Ixalan, right? It's partly about whether there's time, but if you get 3 or 4 of these in a limited deck, you're going to be very happy based on our experience in Ixalan. Dawning Angel, 4 and a white. Yeah, it has a relevant creature type. 3/2 flying, ETB gain 4. That's awfully expensive. One of the things I like about want from my 5 mana flyers is high toughness. You really need these flyers to be coming down and blocking. Like, how many times have you seen me play Dominaria or Guilds of Ravnica on stream, and seen me play one of the 5 mana 3/4 flyers for 5 and had it be super important that it blocked right away? Now, you could argue that gaining 4 life is something akin to blocking, so you're not wrong, but that's a 1-turn thing, and a 3/4 versus a 3/2 is just wildly better. So I'm pretty unimpressed with Dawning Angel. This is a reprint, playable. Looks like there is a life gain thing going on in white for sure. So maybe there's other payoffs and maybe this payoff is reachable. Who knows? There seems to be a lot of life gain so far. Playable but unexciting. Chaplain. Devout Decree, 1 and a white. Exile target creature or planeswalker that's black or red. Scry 1. Solid, just A- sideboard, but sideboard. Disenchant, more like C- sideboard these days. I never seem to bring it in, but interesting that Disenchant is back. It's not been in Modern, huh? A lot of throwback, right? Like Disenchant was Green's thing, but I guess, okay, whatever. Oh, it was in Modern. Yeah, right, it was in Modern. Sorry, it was in plenty of sets that were in Modern, I guess, but just barely. But yeah, I don't know why it's back. Like, yeah, they just printed a strictly better one. That's a good point. Never mind, I'm just thinking wrong. We just never see it because it's not good enough. Eternal Isolation, put target creature with power for... That seems good. As far as kill big stuff cards go. So for 1 and a white at sorcery speed, you can bottom a 4 power or greater creature. That's usually going to be better than killing it because it avoids graveyard recursion. I suppose if they can shuffle their library, it kind of puts it back into possible draw territory. But I like that it's only 2. It kind of reminds me a bit of the counterspell that only counters 4 CMC or greater. That, like, basically whenever you do use this, it's going to get a mana advantage. So that's nice. Yeah, classic. That's a good point. This is put in to contain the gods we've just seen in War of the Spark. Would I main deck it? I'd main deck 1. Yeah. You don't want to main deck more than 1 power 4 or greater removal. If you get a bad matchup and you get both of them in hand, you can't handle, like, basically having mulliganed twice. But I believe that it's fine to put 1 in, but know that you're risking a dead card. There's some, and also we'll take a look at what's good. Like, if this ends up being this would have been a terrible card in something like Zendikar, where everything was about attacking with hard to block bears, and where everything got big on their turn but small on your turn. So, format dependent. Fencing Ace is a reprint. Double Strike. This is a card asking for support. You could throw that, fencing ace plus ancestral blade. Pass that blade on to a fencing ace, and that's going to be pretty happy. Trouble is, this tends to be the mediocre card that you can make good with the presence of other stuff, but it's never kind of good on its own. But it's not bad. I take it back. It's got double strike, right? I mean, it's kind of like, it's at least a 2-for-1. Not 2-for-1, a 2-1. It's not that bad. But I think you really want to be augmenting this. I'm not going to be happy to play this if I'm not actively looking to make my creatures better with other stuff. So yeah, playable, but unexciting unless you're trying to take advantage of it. Gauntlets of Light is 2 and a white for an aura. Speaking of taking advantage of... not this one, though. It's toughness increasing. Enchanted creature gets +0/+2 and assigned combat damage equal to its toughness rather than its power. Okay, never mind. So this would be good on the ace. But I still don't think it's playable particularly. What are we happy to do here? Too much risk. We were talking earlier about strikeout home run cards, that cards that can trick you into thinking they're better than they are by succeeding when they do succeed, and this falls into that category. I'm probably not going to be playing it ever, if much. If not much, if ever, is what I meant to say. Glaring Aegis. When it enters the battlefield, tap target creature an opponent controls. Enchanted creature gets +1/+3. Is this a reprint? I feel like I remember this showing up in a previous set where Luis was pretty high on this in terms of supporting an aggro deck, but I'm kind of not. I don't know. It still has aura problems. I'll probably lose to this, but I doubt I'll be playing it much. There has to be some, like, if there's some hexproofy thing where this is great to put it on, maybe, but I'm not one to run naked auras that are just like, yes, what this card does, its job is to make some creature better while risking a 2-for-1. Yeah, Hair Trigger, you can come up with those combos. Slap it on the, yeah, all right. We slap Aegis on the fencing ace, and we're feeling like God Almighty, and then Murder comes along and just laughs at you, you know? God's Willing is a reprint I'm quite familiar with. This was great in its day. I expect it to be great again. This is a reasonable amount of mana to keep up to protect it. This is like where protection, this like the return of protection here. It's where it does so much work. It's this return of protection where it's like, pros and cons. Yeah, it's kind of like super hexproof to have God's Willing available to you. The thing to remember about protection is that it's not just protected from being targeted. You can do things like, oh, Oppo only has green creatures left and they're at 3 and I have a 3-power creature. So you give your 3-power creature protection from green and it can't be blocked, you know? So protection is just way more powerful than a lot of the, even like, if this said target creature you control gains indestructible until end of turn, for example. That's the kind of thing we've been seeing a lot of as a replacement, and indestructible is just so much worse than protection. Yeah, and Salmon points out another place that that protection works in terms of knocking off enchantments. Oh, and yeah, if you saw that, like, so a quick aside that I've shown this before, but there's an extension you can get for most browsers called Auto Card Anywhere that takes things like this and turns lets you roll over any Magic card name, and it pops up information about it. So I highly recommend adding that to your internet rotation. Griffin Protector, 2 and a 3, ETB. So it's kind of like a fixed, like we've seen this as a 3/3 for 5. This is a 2/3 for 4 version. Oh no, sorry, I read this completely wrong. I made guesses about, actually read the card, Ryan. 3 and a white, 2/3 flying. Whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, Griffin Protector gets +1/+1 until end of turn. Just okay. It's kind of it's a little better than the artifact flyer we've been using sometimes in War of the Spark, you know, because it has a little better upside than that, but just okay. Griffin Sentinel, 1 and a 3 for a flying vigilance. I remember this overperforming as a defensive card in sets where it's been legal historically and where you can augment it. This is just begging for auras and stuff. I'm still not. We're still not doing the aura thing on my stream much, unless I see some significantly more like ETB draw a card type auras. But if you can do things to make this big, getting this bigger, like imagine with some of the stuff we've seen in War of the Spark, where you know put 2 +1/+1 counters on this and suddenly you have a 3/5 vigilant flyer. That's amazing. So looks like they're encouraging newer players to build some battle cruisers in this set. Herald of the Sun is 4 white for a 4/4 flying at uncommon. 3 and a white, put a +1/+1 counter on another target creature with flying, so it cannot pump itself. Yeah, we're doing some M20 looks, so Co-Addict. Yeah, Herald looks a little soft, but a 4/4 for 6 at flying is often a reasonable high end to be playing. It doesn't block very well for its cost. I like 6 mana creatures to have 5 toughness for their blocking. But yeah, if it was a self combo, that would be a different story. But it's kind of like you need other flyers. But it's not unplayable. This is the kind of place where it's like, if this line didn't exist at all, sometimes I might just, play a 6 mana, 4/4 flyer, because that's what my deck needs. It needs some kind of finisher, right? So the fact that you get this extra, think of that as extra. Yeah, James, they are better than they look, but in this case, you need something else, right? It's not for itself. I see what Sam was saying. Yes, good reminder. Sam was reminding regarding protection that if you enchant your Griffin Sentinel with a white aura, and then they block it with Herald of the Sun, and let's say it's a 2/4 and you wanted to save it, if you give your Sentinel pro white to protect against the creature, it will also cause the aura to drop off. So you don't want to give creatures that are enchanted with auras that are good for you protection from the color of the aura. Imperial Outrider, boring 1/5, rarely has a job, these types of cards, but sometimes they do. I mean, we found that 2/5 was it the crab? The crab was 2/5, right? So like 5 toughness has been a magic enough number that sometimes you'll be willing to play it, but we'll see. Inspired Charge is a great go wide payoff. If there's a lot of token making, keep Inspired Charge in mind, but also don't be afraid to, if you are running Inspired Charge, to remember that you can just use it as a target creature gets +2/+1 if that happens to keep it alive or win combat or whatever. Inspiring Captain, yeah, there's high toughness creatures that could use that butt fight enchantment, but I still don't recommend it. You're just setting yourself up for 2-for-1s. Inspiring Captain is 3 and a white for a 3/3. This is what I was predicting the other one was. When it ETBs, creatures you control get +1/+1 until end of turn. So I'm seeing back-to-back, we have Inspired Charge and Inspiring Captain saying go wide with white. So maybe we'll see some token making. These two scream go wide. Loyal Pegasus is 2 and a 1 flyer for a single white, but it can't attack or block alone. think that was in one of the Theros block sets, and it was pretty risky. It was pretty risky. If you're going to run Loyal Pegasus, you need to be running a lot of creatures. You do not want to get stuck, because like think about Crunch, or things that have some attack requirements. This has block requirements. When a card has block requirements, be careful. It can be a dead card. But if you can support it with a bunch of other cheap stuff, a 2/1 flyer for 1 seems pretty strong. But the other thing is, like, it's like never attacking on turn 2, right? And kind of what you want out of your 2-power 1-drop is to attack on turn 2, and it's basically never doing that. Master Splicer, 3 and a white for a 1/1. When Master Splicer enters the battlefield, create a 3/3 colorless golem artifact creature token. Golems you control get +1/+1, so they're reprinting Splicers from New Phyrexia, it looks like. These are generally pretty powerful in the abstract. Like, if you do nothing except cast it, you get a total of 5 power and toughness. And that's pretty good for 4 mana. And then you can do things like blink it, though. Although the 1/1 is not very useful, If there's things to blink, return, or otherwise get the value out of Master Splicer a second time, that's when you're really doing it. Moment of Heroism is a reprint, a combat trick for 2 mana, 1 and a white. Target creature gets +2/+2 and gains lifelink until end of turn. There's some more incidental life gain. It can be game swinging life gain when it's giving a creature lifelink and bonus. I mean, heck, you put this on a 1/1, it's a 3 extra points of life gain. And if you put it on something huge, like, it can absolutely swing races. Moorland Inquisitor, another reprint, 1 and a white for a 2/2, and for 2 and a white, Moorland Inquisitor gains first strike until end of turn. That's awfully pricey, but it's a threat of activation thing that can do a lot of work. If I go Moorland Inquisitor on my second turn, you untap and start your second turn, and you play a Moorland Inquisitor of your own. I untap and play a third land. You can't block. There's just a lot of spots where this 2 and a white ability really just reads Moorland Inquisitor is unblockable this turn. So it's a bear with occasional unblockability, which is not terrible, but we'll see if we'll see how good a 2/2 for 2 is in the set. Pacifism is back to just be a pretty straightforward premium removal spell. But again, yeah, Pacifism, remember Pacifism with all this protection stuff, especially God's Willing. And the presence of God's Willing, it's at uncommon, but the presence of God's Willing does make Pacifism a little worse in the format, because you can just give your creature pro-white and Pacifism falls off. Raise the alarm. Well, there you go. I was talking about going wide with tokens. Historically, we've seen kind of white leaning into 3 mana for 2 tokens that have like lifelink or vigilance or something. In this case, they're pretty boring tokens, but bam, bam, 2 mana, and you get your go wide going. So I'm starting to see that I would like, yeah, maybe Inquisitor is going to be good, and Pacifism is good in attacking decks because it's the kind of removal that gets a blocker out of the way. Yeah, it looks like changing their mind on great removal at common. Rule of Law is more of a constructed card. I don't think you'd ever bring this in. Savannah Sage, 1 and a white for a 2/2. When it ETBs, you gain 2 life. Pretty simple incidental life gain dude. Looks like it's not even in the draft format, though. It's got card number 284 of 280, so you're never going to draft this. That's one way to tell, by the way. Anything with a number above the collector number is legal and standard, but is made for some pre-con deck and not going to be in boosters. Life gain is all over the place in white. That is true. I'm looking forward to Rule of Law and Constructed. Soulmender, not the life gain I want unless they're... what would I play Soulmender for? Well, I'd play Soulmender if my opponent was attacking with a lot of 2-1 creatures, a lot of 1 toughness creatures on the ground, and do some blocking. But the gain 1 life is almost meaningless unless there is some ridiculous recurring payoff you can get for gaining life. Oh, there's Pridemate in here? Okay. Is there... We didn't see a Johnny's Pridemate. Is it... Yeah, anyway. Squad Captain. What have we got here? 4 and a white. 2/2 Vigilance. When it enters the battlefield, with a +1/+1 counter on it for each other creature you control. More go wide payoffs. Interesting, because this is kind of a go tall, go wide payoff. I think I like that. I'm not sure how many I want to play, but probably a couple. Obviously, you want to go heavy creatures or creature token making. But you only need a handful for this to be fine, and on some boards it's going to be bonkers. The Vigilance is super real if you're in spots where you're making like some 10-10. You know, it's not... In a board stall, in a token deck, it's not unrealistic to think that sometimes you're going to have a squad captain that's 10 plus toughness and power, and at that point the Vigilance becomes very oppressive for an opponent. Steadfast Sentry is 2 and a white for a 3/2 Vigilance. When Steadfast Sentry dies, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. We've seen that in black in Guilds of Ravnica without the Vigilance, and it was pretty good without the Vigilance. Not pretty good, it was playable, right? But kind of replacement level, actually. But the Vigilance makes it a little bit better. So I think this is just a little bit above replacement level. Yeah, squad... no, each other creature you control does not count itself. Twin Blade Paladin, 3 and a white for a 3/3. Whenever you gain life, put a +1/+1 counter on Twin Blade Paladin. As long as you have 25 or more life, Twin Blade Paladin has double strike. Well... That's, I guess, a payoff for some regular life gain, but it's not enough. Like, the people are going to be playing Soulmender because they have, like, Twin Blade Paladin. And, you know, sometimes a Twin Blade Paladin is going to get insanely big because of some dumb Soulmender, but I just don't think Soulmender is worth a card like this. You need a lot more support than that. Yoked Ox is an 0/4. Yeah, we're not really playing that. I try not to play 0/4s. Ether Gust, 1 and a blue for an instant. Choose target spell or permanent that's red or green. Its owner puts it on the top or bottom of their library. So they either need to kill it or lose their draw. And it sucks to give an opponent a choice, but in this case, you'd be pretty happy with the text. Its owner puts it on top of their library. So the fact that sometimes it goes to the bottom is fine. Good old Air Elemental. Oh yeah, it's sideboard because it's like red or green. So just try to pick it up super late. Air Elemental is a first pickable uncommon for sure. Just straight up beef in the air is nice. Anticipate. We know this one. Very cuttable and limited, but very playable if you need it. It is what it is. Befuddle. We saw this in Dominaria, and it was playable there. Again, it depends on what you're trying to do. If you're trying to stay alive until you can stabilize and take over the game, Befuddle is actually playable. It is going to gain you at, you know, its floor. If you're under some pressure, its floor becomes gain 4 life, or gain some amount of life and draw a card, and that is a fine filler for 3. But you really don't want to take this highly. You're just going to pick this up when it's basically free. Bone to Ash. Well, how much are we playing at instant speed in this format? Because Bone to Ash is 2 blue, counter target creature spell, draw a card. Man, when you fire that off, it feels hard to lose. When you hold up 4 mana hoping to fire it off and have to untap having never played anything for your 4 mana, it feels tough to win. So it can cut both ways, and a lot of the quality of Bone to Ash is going to depend on format and whether you can whether there's enough time to hold up a 4 mana counter spell and how decks are winning. But mainly, if you draft a Bone to Ash, try to find other instant speed stuff to do. The best thing to do is to hold up your Bone to Ash, but then, hey, I get to draw 2 at instant speed at the end of your turn because you didn't cast anything I could counter. Boreal Elemental is 4 and a blue for a 3/4 flying. Spells your opponents cast that target Boreal Elemental cost 2 more to cast. Okay, here's where we're talking. I'm always interested in the 3/4 5 mana flyer, as I spoke to earlier, and this is decent because if removal is clunky. I was talking about how important it is that this card sticks around to be able to block, and the clause, at least, it makes it much more likely that you're going to stick around to block with it. And this is a lot worse than Air Elemental. The extra 4 power is kind of no contest. Like, as much as I really value the 4 toughness, if you can bump this up to 4 power, then it becomes quite a clock. 3 power is a 7-turn clock, 4 power a 5-turn clock, so cutting the clock down by 2 turns in the abstract. It's never that simple, but you know what I mean. Brineborn Cutthroat, 1 and a blue for a 2/1 flash. Already that's okay. Whenever you cast a spell during an opponent's turn, put a +1/+1 counter on Brineborn Cutthroat. Note that it does not put a counter on itself. This is not a 3/2 flash, but again, playing at instant speed has its benefits. So that's good too. It's an uncommon. It's still a 2/1, but hopefully you trade up with it by jumping in front of something with 2 toughness that wasn't expecting it. Captivating Gyre. 4 blue. Return up to 3 target creatures to their owner's hands. This effect has been surprisingly underwhelming. So I'm going to hedge on this and say, historically speaking, it's not something I'm excited about. Because this effect tends to be best in aggro, and blue tends to be best when it's not being aggro. So that is a major knock against this card. That's just, if there's a blue-white skies deck, though, it might go well in that. Yeah, the good point chosen. Consider that River's Rebuke for the same cost gets everything. Celestial Messenger, 2 blue for a 3/2 common flash flying, and it gets plus. Oh, this is a faker. This is a fakey. I can always tell as soon as it says you control a blah blah planeswalker. I know it's a fakey. I should just start by looking at the number. Flying protection for Cerulean Drake, 1 and a blue for a 1/1 flying pro red. Sacrifice Drake, counter target spell that targets you. That's another constructed playable. It is definitely good against the red deck. My goodness. I'm still just kind of sad to see protection back, but at least they're trying to give him a job in standard. Cloudkin Seer, 2 and a blue for a 2/1 flyer. When it enters the battlefield, draw a card. I'm in. Give me Marshall. This is like the Marshalliest, Luisist card of the set. More the Marshalliest, actually, I would say. It feels very tempo-y. But yeah, I think protection is a mistake to reprint, and I don't understand. I truly don't understand why they did. I read Mark Rosewater's explanation, but I don't buy it. He was saying it was like it was good for the meta. It's like, yeah, hexproof from blue or whatever could have been good for the meta. It's such an overburdened mechanic. I just don't know why they would bring it back. I was so happy that they had seemingly retired it. Convolute. Well, it's practically a hard counter for at 4. We've been making fun of bad quench or whatever. This isn't quench. 4 is in fact twice as much as 2. If I did the math right. Hold on, let me think. Yep, I did the math right. It's twice as much as 2. Why? Because I think increased complexity in the game, in a core set especially, is not good for the game. I don't think it's good for new players, and I don't think that it's not good for the complexity of the game to reprint overburdened old mechanics. Clean, elegant mechanics are the way you want to go. Yeah, this is good quench. I'm going to call this bad. Is it bad mana leak? Yeah, it's bad leak, good quench. Something in that range. Somewhere between mana leak and quench. How about that? Fairy Miscreant. Here's a ETB draw card that I'm a little less enthused about. I remember this not really ever working out when this showed up the first time. Man, Dionysus, I feel like I keep trying to answer this question and then you keep asking the same question. It's overburdened. It's a mechanic that does 4 things in one mechanic. It doesn't allow creatures to block. It can't be blocked by, can't be targeted by, can't be enchanted by, and can't be damaged by. That's 4 different things jammed into one mechanic, Dionysus. That's bad design. That is too much information packed into one single keyworded mechanic. Okay? Take Hexproof from Black that we saw in the Dominaria Uncommons, right? Like Hexproof from Black? That's one of those 4. Can't be targeted by. So Hexproof from Black was a mechanic that said, let's not be overburdened with protection. Let's take away 3 of those and just do 1. That's good design. That can be executed on a card, and it ties in nicely to an existing mechanic that you have. You have the concept of Hexproof already. By saying Hexproof from Black, you leverage something people already know to create a simple mechanic. Hexproof is a good mechanic for its elegance, for its simplicity and grokkability. But protection is confusing to new players, and yeah, it sets up feel bads. It sets up what you don't want to do, Dionysus, for your newer players is teach them that this game is all about gotcha. You're a dummy. You didn't know the rules. Gotcha. You cast protection from white on your creature aura with a white thing, and it fell off. And I gotcha. And it's like, oh, don't set up new players for gotchas. They hate that. So, yeah, if you can't cleanly explain the mechanic parenthetically on a common, then I think you should rethink it, especially if it's a reprint of a mechanic that you had basically retired. Yeah, exactly. Core set is an especially weird time, unless you're like the one thing that protection has going for it is nostalgia for players who are coming back to the game. There are some players who used to play and have been out of it for a while and are coming back because of Arena, and they might be happy to see Protection as some friendly face from the past, but... Okay, good, Dionysus, we're there. Frilled Sea Serpent. This looks insane, and you're probably not going to play this too much, but you also are going to lose to this sometimes. Sometimes what you need to do is pay 7 and make your thing not block and get there. Esru saying, I wouldn't have known those rules without watching this. That's what I mean. Like, that's crazy. They had things that could be explained on a card, and instead they're using things that need streamers to explain to their audience. It just doesn't make sense. Frostlinks, very good card. First pickable, question mark? Probably. In a weak pack, you wouldn't hate to take a Frostlinks. And maybe this does support some tempo-based blue. Like I was talking about how that bounce 3 creatures isn't that great without being aggressive, but Frostlinks is a pretty aggressive blue card. So maybe there is a tempo-based aggro blue in which that bounce spell gets a little better. Hardcover. Oh, hardcover. It's a book. I was thinking it was like hardcover, like take cover, but no. Hardcover. A blue for an aura. Enchant creature. Enchanted creature gets +0/+2 and has tap, draw a card, then discard a card. So, at what point is an aura that loots worth the risk? I could see playing this. I could see running this in a control deck. I'm a little nervous though. You still have to. I really want to make sure I'm getting the first loot, so I'm never going to cast this on something summoning sick unless I'm just absolutely desperate. So mainly what I want to do here is cast this when I have a dead land in hand and an active creature, so that if they kill that creature, I at least effectively get to replace the hardcover by cycling away, an unwanted land or whatever. Yeah, I haven't been impressed with blue so far. Metropolis Sprite, that 2/1 flyer was great. Metropolis Sprite, 1 and a blue for a 1/2, and it gets +1/-1 until end of turn. Yeah, it's maybe a little better than it looks. You can at least attack with 2. Attack for 2 a good deal of the time. And of course, if you can get it aura'd up or something, you can even do bigger stuff with it. And yeah, it kind of laughs at the 1/1, the Miscreant, although we were all laughing at the Miscreant. Moat Piranhas, 1 and a blue for a 3/3 defender. I'm out, I think. At least in the side. I can sideboard that in. If you were up against aggro Boros or something, I'd absolutely bring in a Moat Piranhas. You know, if you need to block and trade with low drops, you could do a lot worse. But that's the job I would have for it. So keeping the ground clogged up while you win through the air, basically. Negate is back. Not really main decking that, but you can. There's usually something to get. Octoprofit, I was going to say this is going to be something that scries. Hill Giant Scry 2 still doesn't bring the Hill Giant up to snuff these days. I'm not thrilled about this, but Scry 2 is pretty close. It approximates drawing a card. Maybe I should be more thrilled about this. Scry 2 is pretty good. You're probably going to get a land you don't want out of the way. That's all right. Scry 8 from says James. Yeah, that would be a little powerful. But yeah, I take it. I was a little lower on this than I am at this moment. I think this is the Scry 2 makes this fine. It makes it fine. Whereas without Scry 2, it's kind of bad. Portal of Sanctuary is 2 and a blue for an artifact, and you can pay 1 and tap it to return target creature you control and each aura attached to it to their owner's hands. Activate this ability only during your turn. Maybe there's shenanigans I'm not seeing yet or thinking about, but this seems bad. I mean, you can't even protect your stuff on their turn. What are we doing with this? I think it's a build around that I don't even know if can be built around. We'll see. Yeah, ETB effect abuse is what it's going for, maybe, James, but it just seems really slow to do that. Renowned Weaponsmith, 1 and a blue for a 1/3 uncommon. Tap to add 2 colorless. Spend this mana only to cast artifact spells or activate artifacts abilities of artifacts. Okay. And then you can pay 1 and tap Renowned Weaponsmith to search your library for a card named Heartpiercer Bow or Vial of Dragonfire. Reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle your library. Oh, yeah. I forgot that this was a reprint. Okay. I remember these not being that great, though. Or maybe they reprinted Heartpiercer Bow and Vial, but this isn't a reprint? I don't know. We'll see if this build around. I can't tell. It's hard to say looking at a card like this whether it's going to have the tools to matter or not. Turn 3, Immortal Sun. No. Turn 4 is an Immortal Sun 6. I guess if you went turn 1 Llanowar Elf, turn 2 Weaponsmith, turn 3, you could have it. Sage's Road Denizen, 2/3. Whenever another blue creature enters the battlefield under your control. Oh, thank you for that sub. Whenever another blue creature enters the battlefield under your control, target player... Oh, it's the mill card. Yeah, this is not good. But people are going to try to mill you out, and mostly it's not going to work. Scholar of the Ages, 5 blue. When it enters the battlefield, return up to 2 target instant and or sorcery cards from your graveyard to your hand. Well, I want to make this work, I can tell you that. I sure hope this card is good. I would love to cast this on 7 and get back a couple of removal spells or whatever. Sleep Paralysis, 3 and a blue for enchant creature. When sleep paralysis entered, tap and it doesn't untap. Sure, just 4 mana blue style removal that is susceptible to God's willing, so keep that in mind. All right, we're gonna go to the end of the blue here, and I'm gonna call it a stream for the day. Getting late. I got some cards to ship. Card Kingdom ain't the only one that sells some magic cards, but they're the best. Spectral Sailor, a blue mana for a 1/1. It has flash. All right, they're trying. It has flying. Okay, they're really trying. 3 and a blue, draw a card. All right, there's a 1/1 flyer for 1 that I'll play. I think that does enough. Although, really, let's face it, it's about, like... it's about this line. Like, I'm not sure... If you ask me right now, or you tell me, would you rather have an artifact, a 1-mana artifact that just said 3 and a blue, draw a card? Or would you rather have this? Like, maybe this is better. It's a lot more vulnerable. But if you're just trying to be a control deck, you might just rather have the artifact. So again, it's like, yes, technically you've made a 1/1 flyer for 1 that I'm happy to play, but only because I really like the activated ability you put on it. But it's Healer's Hawk had lifelink, and I think that's a very relevant part of what Healer's Hawk was up to. No, this is a Vidalkin. Vidalkins are 4-fingered race in Magic. Return target creature to its owner's hand. Unsummon is another kind of card that the format ends up telling you whether it's good or not. Looks like there has been some tempo-y blue cards, though. I'm wondering if there's something... You got Spectral Sailor, Unsummon. Maybe there are the tools to get pretty aggro with blue. That would be interesting. I would like to do something new feeling with blue. It would be fun to have blue be an aggro color for once. And Warden is good, I remember. Warden of Evos Isle. Oh yeah, it's a 2 and a blue for a 2/2 flying, and creature spells with flying you cast cost 1 less to cast. Really, seems to be a blue-white skies deck that's pretty... I mean, I've looked at blue-white, so maybe that's just why it's jumping out at me, but the blue-white skies deck looks pretty good. And here's more of it. Oh no, it's 288, so this doesn't count. Winged Words, 2 and a blue. This spell costs 1 less to cast if you control a creature with flying. Draw 2 cards. So, Divination, but even better if you have flyers. Yeah, sign me up. Seems great. Probably going to be first picking that if its format is anything like, Dominaria or anything like that. Well, Yarok's Wave Crasher is 3 and a blue for a 4/4. And when it enters the battlefield, return another creature you control to its owner's hand. So there's a couple ways you can go about this. Obviously, you want to try to turn this into not a drawback. If it's the only creature, it does not bounce itself. It says another creature you control. So if this is your first creature, or your only creature, you get a 4/4 for 4 in blue, which is pretty strong. And the other thing, of course, you want to do is bounce stuff that you're happy to replay. Like, I don't want to go back to the other screen, but there was basically the bouncing that 2/1 flyer that draws a card. The Frost Links is another good one. The trouble is, it's a real cost. Like, you can see how bouncing a Frost Link back to your hand could be good. Splicer, there you go. Yeah, bouncing the Splicer is the best one I've heard yet. Thanks, James. I was talking about ways to abuse that Splicer, and this is a good one. But generally, if you cast this on and have to return like a 3 or higher CMC creature that doesn't do something, you've really harmed yourself. So you really want to get value out of the return. It looks like there's a lot of tools to do just that. So I think that's intriguing. I hope that we can crash some waves and get some value out of ETB stuff with this card. And finally, for today, Zephyr Charge, 1 and a blue. Enchantment. Target creature gains flying until end of turn for 1 and a blue. It's not tap or anything, so you can do that as much as you want. I said I was okay with the aura that gave one thing flying because it drew the card back. This doesn't draw you a card. I don't think I can get behind this. I think this is a strikeout home run that's going to win some games against you, but is mostly not going to be holding its weight for the card that it's costing people who play it, so I doubt I'll be playing it much. Also kind of weird that this is a common, not because of power level, but just because you don't see a lot of global enchantments, as they used to be called, at common. Something that sits around and has an activated ability. It's it's a little unusual. Usually the uncommon enchantments are auras. All right, well, that took us through a couple of colors, and I'll keep talking. I'll do this tomorrow, and we can get through the commons and uncommons, see where I land relative to the LR boys when they get that done. All right, everybody. You just finished blue? So did we. Marshall, you're just recording what I'm saying and you're going to broadcast it as LR. That could work. Did you guys like blue? Seems a little more aggro this time, but also a little underwhelming. Like, doesn't seem great, but it also seems tempo-based, which seems kind of interesting, at least.